Okay, so there was this recent House vote on Iran, and something pretty surprising happened. A bunch of Democrats broke ranks. Today, we're going to break down a Fox News segment that tried to figure out, well, why.
Let's just start with one number 53. That's the number of House Democrats who voted against a resolution on Iran. And that vote, as you can imagine, raised a pretty big question.
So here's the real puzzle, right? What on earth changed so much in just 3 years? That's what we're going to get into. We're going to unpack the analysis from the commentators on that show to see what their take was on this big political shift.
Okay, but here's the interesting thing. The segment didn't actually start with the vote itself. Nope. It kicked off with a profile of a U.S. senator. And honestly, that profile ended up setting the stage for the whole conversation. So, the person they were talking about was Senator Markwayne Mullin from Oklahoma. The guest commentator, a guy named Domenech, had just written a profile on him, and the way he described the senator, calling him a political character, yeah, that really set the tone right from the get-go.
So what you get is this picture of a total political paradox. I mean, on one hand, they call him a brawler in hearings, but then on the other hand, he's the guy who bridges the divide with Democrats. So you've got this confrontational character who's also this practical politician. And the segment really presented this as a rare and maybe even a disappearing kind of quality in Washington these days. All right, so after setting the stage with that profile, the conversation finally pivots to the main event, that House resolution on Iran. So what was this thing? What was in this 9-line statement anyway? Okay, so here's the key thing they pointed out in the segment, how simple this resolution was. It wasn't calling for any new action, new policy. It was literally just a 9-line statement saying something that's been an established fact for a long time, that Iran is a state sponsor of terrorism. That's it. And this is where you really see the core of the issue. Just look at the numbers. 3 years ago, basically the same resolution passes 420 to 1. I mean, that's about as close to a consensus as you can get. Fast forward to now, 53 Democrats vote no. The host in the segment called it a stark contrast, and yeah, you can see why. Okay, so that brings us back to the big question. Why? Why the huge shift? Well, the guest on the show had a theory, and it went way beyond just the words on the page. He was getting into what he thought was the real motivation for some of those no votes.
The commentator, Domenech, he really hammered this point home. He called it, and I quote, the easiest vote in the world. His whole argument was, look, it's just a factual statement, so the no votes couldn't possibly be about people disagreeing with the fact itself, right? And this is the absolute core of his analysis. He argued the no vote wasn't about the statement, but about what might happen after the statement. His theory is that those 53 Democrats voted against a simple fact because, as he put it, they were uncomfortable with the things that follow. In other words, they were afraid this vote was just the first domino that could lead down a path to a real conflict with Iran. So, you see what's happening here? The commentator takes this one specific vote and uses it to zoom out and make a much bigger point about where American politics is at today, especially when it comes to foreign policy. And this quote was really the pivot. He starts to question whether the Democratic Party even has any, what he called, muscle memory left for the kind of unified bipartisan front against foreign threats that he remembers from back in the day. The specific example he brought up was the time right after 9/11. He described it as an era when politicians who were at each other's throats on domestic issues could still, link arms when it came to an outside threat. It's a pretty powerful image, right? This idea of a totally unified front on national security. And based on this one vote, his conclusion was, well, it was sweeping. He just says it bluntly. That is no longer the case. And then he takes it even further, claiming that what he would call true moderates don't even exist in the Democratic Party anymore. He's basically suggesting a massive political shift has already happened. And that's where the segment leaves it, with this really provocative question. It starts with one vote, and it spirals out into this fundamental challenge about the number one job of a government. It's a pretty stark way to end it, and you can tell it's the one thing the show really wanted its viewers to think about.